Welcome to the Phase 1 Parent Class online video education, and this is the first of a series of presentations for you. You've called us because your child has a substance use issue and they don't recognize that it's a problem in their life. In this section of the parent class, we're talking about what we are doing with them in the counseling process to help them recognize this as a problem. And the chemical use assessment is a big part of your role to help them recognize this as a problem as well. So that's what we want to talk about today. With substance users, you can't just walk up to them and say you have a substance abuse or an addiction problem. They have to come up with their own assessment, their own conclusion, their own diagnosis to realize that it's a problem. And it's our job to help them recognize this as a problem. And more specifically in the counseling process and working with you, walk them through a process where they increasingly come up with their own conclusion that this is a problem. The chemical use assessment helps us with that. We've heard the cliche before that substance abusers will not make change unless they hit rock bottom. And what we're trying to do is lift the bottom. We're lifting the bottom for them by trying to create an internal conflict for them that if they use that it's not as fun as it used to be, that they're using while they're also mindful of the fact that they've had problems from their drug use. That's the start of creating the conflict and lifting a bottom for them psychologically and emotionally. Meanwhile, you're going to learn in the next couple of video presentations from here, the setting limits for your child video, about how to have clear boundaries in the home, drug test, clear consequences for unmet expectations, and that's a behavioral and system way to lift the bottom for them as well. But the combination of everything happening at once, them being in a counseling process, getting education, going through the chemical use assessment process, the home contract, drug testing, the combination of all of those things at the same time can really be effective in helping them to recognize this as a problem in their life. So the other cliche, so we're trying to lift the bottom, and the other cliche is, hey, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't get them to drink. When I first meet with clients, they are so far away from the water that they couldn't drink if they wanted to. And what I mean by that is, the water is their recognition of it as a problem and their desire to make change. When myself or other colleagues of mine meet with young people in the beginning and ask them to identify how their substance use has created consequences in their life or how it's been a problem, they typically deny that it has been. And then actually when they really do try to inventory how it's been a problem, they only come up with about 2 or 3 consequences that they really can attribute to it as a problem. Now, that's with their best insight and when they're trying to recognize it as a process, as a problem. When we go through the chemical use assessment phase of treatment and get to the end of that, they will have a list of 20, 25, or 30 consequences that have occurred in their life as a result of their drug use. And that list is in their own words with their own examples of how it's been a problem in their life. And at that point, they will be able to articulate how it's been a problem. So in the beginning, they can't recognize it as a problem even when they're trying. They have no insight into it. We walk them through this process and it helps them to start to come up with their own conclusion, their own assessment to their own conclusion that this is a problem. And at that point, the horse is at the water and we can start to expect them to drink, turn the volume up in treatment, in accountability, and ask them to step into recovery. And we'll talk more about that later. So your role in the chemical use assessment process, prior to watching this video, it states on the internet to print out the chemical use assessment so you can follow along with this lecture. But the chemical use assessment well, let me back up. What we're doing with them in the chemical use assessment process is that we're helping them to start to talk about how their substance use has created consequences in school, family, health, friendship, social life, money, spiritual, relationship to the community, ethics, self-esteem. We're trying to ask them to take a look at all these different ways in which it's created problems. And we're asking them all the right questions to help guide their attention to that. Have you skipped school because of drug use? Have you used drugs before school? Have you told yourself you were going to do your homework but you got high? Has your GPA changed? Do you have a reputation at school because of drug use? Have you bought drugs on campus, sold drugs on campus? Skipped classes, gone to school hungover, used drugs on campus. And when we're asking these questions, of course, we're doing it much slower than that. and they'll start talking about how they relate to that. So suddenly they didn't have any insight into this. As in the beginning, they didn't have any insight into this as how it's a problem for them, and then suddenly with these questions, they're able to start talking about what they relate to with that. When we finish up, when we finish up that assessment with them, and it takes maybe 8, 9, 10 weeks to finish that up, we type up everything that they mentioned, their entire drug use history, all of the consequences it's created in all of the areas of their life, and we have them read that and process that. Then what we do is we have a family session where they can share that with you. They're going to read to you their entire substance use history and how it's been a problem for them. But also in this session, you're going to share with them this chemical use assessment that I'm now going to go into detail about. What we're asking you to do is to write down specific incidents that have occurred from drug use in different areas of their life, the consequence to them, and then how you felt about this. And we're asking parents to write this presentation up separately. Don't collaborate on this as a parenting project that you both are sharing in the formulation and organization of this presentation to your child. Mom, write your own presentation. Dad, write your own presentation, or write your own chemical use assessment. So we're asking you to write down concrete examples of from the past, nothing about the future. So we want the incident, the consequence to them, and then how you felt at the time. No lectures, no judgments or put downs. Write it directly